Everybody swear now.
Right, sure.
I take it all of you can hear that we need more storage.
No.
Oh, okay. On my side it said that it was telling me that we need more storage. So I was just waiting for it to go through there. So welcome to Happy Hour. Jenny and I are co-hosting with Victoria, and it's about 4-H. I guess we can start off with introductions. We did a little bit. Christy, I'll let you start.
Okay. Hey, I am Christy Phillips, and I'm in Arkansas. I just got my first SCI goats I got my buck in January and a doe and her doeling in April. And I plan to eventually get more, breed more, but not too many. I've been raising alpines for 16 years on alpines, goats in general for 18, so I do know goats. I do know registrations, which is how I stumbled into being your registry committee chair, because I actually had registered a goat. That's all you have to do to qualify. But anyway, I am the registry committee chair, so if anybody has paperwork issues, hit me up, and that's that.
Thank you very much. I know Jana's on the road, so unless she wants to hop in there, we'll skip by her. And then Erin, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm Erin Link. I'm from western Wisconsin in Ridgeland, and I've been raising San Clemente goats since 2013. And I keep a herd of anywhere between probably 25 to 50 or 65, something in that realm. So my hay storage dictates how many goats I should have, right? So that's good. But that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Erin. Lisa, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Lisa McCune-Knoll. I'm the SCI goat fangirl. Have no experience with the SCI goats or goats in general. This is going to be all new to me and my husband. So we're just here to shut up and learn from the experts.
Sounds good, thank you.
We're from Mercer, PA.
Thank you. And then Victoria, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Victoria. I am currently the Youth Services chair. This is my daughter, Evelyn. She came to join in. She wants to learn all about San Clemente Island goats, and they just purchased their first one. So she's very full of me, very excited to participate. We are in North Carolina and have a herd of about 15 right now. How about you, Bye?
Sounds good. I'll let Jenny introduce us.
All right. Hi. Jenny and Erin Bye. We are in Minnesota, just outside of the Twin Cities. We're up 30 minutes from St. Paul and Minneapolis. We actually got our first two doelings from Erin Link, so she is our mentor. Let's see. We have also a herd of pygmy Nigerian dwarfs. That's actually what we started with, and then we learned about the San Clemente. So we're easing into, as we grow our herd, as it being an SCI-focused herd. We have two teenage kids. Our daughter just turned 13, so two teenagers that are in 4-H, and we are working on starting a leasing program with our goats, with our San Clementes, and starting a heritage goat program in our local club to be showing at our county fair. So this has been our little passion project of the year. So.
And we have 7 kids who are active with us, and the possibility of 2 more maybe that just haven't had time to come over yet.
Yes, so we'll have 9 students enrolled in our leasing program. Well, 2 of them are our own kids, so 7 kids leasing, 9 kids in the program for showing San Clemente Island goats at our county fair. So that's pretty exciting.
So yeah, I guess we can hop right in. And I kind of have I don't have it posted that you guys can see, but we'll go through, just kind of how to start. So Jenny will talk more about it. She does more of the detail work on that. But just as far as how to start, communication, because we started this almost a year ago with our 4-H groups. trying to figure out and navigate how we can even show our goats. So.
Yeah, so the focus of tonight's meeting is to talk about youth services and 4-H and FFA. And we don't have kids old enough for FFA yet. And Victoria, your kids are not high school yet, right? Yours are younger?
Correct. My oldest is 8.
Okay. And so I haven't explored what the opportunities are with FFA yet. We'll start with 4-H, at least for our own knowledge base, because it personally impacts us. And then as we learn more about it, we'll start working into FFA. But if any of you have FFA contacts or advice, I'm more than happy to listen or give you the voice here at the meeting. So what started, our first point of contact was talking to our county representative, and she wanted me to talk to our state representative, and that being in the animal science department of 4-H, they actually have, at least in Minnesota, have a representative for each animal. So there's a representative for goats and pigs and cows. And so I spoke with our contact, and he was really excited about the opportunity for the heritage goats to have a category, and it not being specific to just San Clemente days, but making it heritage. And he knew that there was some like chatter around different animals and different, like the pigs, and talking about what could we do for them and how could they show, because there's differences that make it really hard to show, whether it's showmanship or for market animals, and they just haven't had anybody push. So I decided to push. And so what our state told us is that if we got it approved at the county level, and if enough counties participate, then they will bring it to the state level. So he figured it'd be about 3, maybe 5 years before we can show at the state fair. So then I pushed back at my county reps, and they're all for it, but they wanted us to start with showing in the meat goat category, because that's the only category that allows horns, and we're limited to the breeding does or doelings. And so that's how we're getting our foot in the door for this year. And then next year, she's going to try to make a completely new category for us. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. And then if we have success with that, then they'll help us keep growing the program, and they also want to help it be for other livestock too. So poultry, whoever there is actually a demand for, they'll work on creating that category. So to help finance all of this, I applied for a grant through our state program. Minnesota has a program called Helping Hands Grants, and that is an opportunity, I don't know if other states have it, at least for us, to get a fund of up to, I think, $1,200 was the cap on it, and it's for starting projects or financing club projects that make a difference. It could be a recycling program or purchasing Legos for a STEM project or anything like that. So I decided to apply for the Heritage Goat Leasing program to start that up, and we were awarded $1,000. And so we're using that to fund books. So the kids are all going to get books from 4-H and study guides, and then help get fans and grooming things and hay bags and stuff like that to get the kids out to the fair and make it a no-cost activity for the students. So it'll be a good, figure out what it really takes to make this happen the first year, and if we have all the infrastructure in place, then hopefully the future years will go more smoothly. It wasn't a really hard application, but it was a really slow process. So that was my first grant writing experience for the goats or for 4-H. So I definitely need some more practice. Let's see, I'm looking at our little checklist here.
Highlighted the squeaky wheel.
Oh, yes, squeaky wheel. Aaron also realized that if we don't push, at least with 4-H, because it's volunteer driven mostly, we have paid staff through the extension services, but at least at the club level and even at the county level, they're paid, but they are overextended. If we don't keep reminding them that we're waiting on answers, it gets put on the back burner. So that's part of the reason why we don't have our own category this year, is because I was told, oh, follow up with me later. And then I follow up later. They're like, okay, I'll get back to you later. And it was just a bunch of postponing and not acting, and all of a sudden it's too late. Like the county fair book was published, they didn't have a category for us, so we kind of backpedaled into this meat goat breeding doe. Okay, we're going to kind of shoe you in this other category, and then it'll all work out. And it's okay that we're not bringing the boys, because we only have one buck, and I don't think we'd want him to go anyways, and one wether, and he's really skittish, so I don't think he would go well either. So it's actually working out just fine for our herd and the kids that are working with us. But if this is something that you want at your local level, if you just ask once, don't expect, at least with 4-H, for it to just happen, because it's a low budget program. So you just have to have some drive and some motivation, and if you push and if you put time into it, it'll happen. And if you need examples or want to see the grant application, if you have that opportunity, I'm happy to send you copies of what we sent in. I guess other questions on that so far? Yeah, Erin Link.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I'm kind of curious. I was in 4-H. I paid no attention to what I was doing when I was little, and I was an art kid anyways. But for like the heritage category period, I'm really curious. Like, I know this doesn't make sense with like live animals and showing, like, let's say heritage pigs. Like, is there a push to kind of like the whole, like, is it the Arc of Taste, I think it is, to like, gosh, it's hard. Sorry, this like how, because heritage breeds do have distinct value. Like, I think about pigs specifically, where some are more lardy, some have more of this, some have more of that. And I'm thinking about that. I know, like, San Clemente, you probably don't want to start showing them as a meat breed. It's just a straight up heritage. But if you do end up like selling them for meat somewhere down the line, I really do think about like that Arc of Taste type of thing, or like being able to be like, oh, San Clemente goats or like these other critters have, you know, other assets or values attached to them.
Yeah, so the hope would be, instead of it being under either meat or under dairy, is that it would be its own category. And so they will be judged based on those other things. So whether or not we want to, at the county level or the state level, say that these are all-purpose animals, dual-purpose animals, or just homesteading animals, or that's kind of to be determined what that would be defined as. It also kind of, I think, depending on not necessarily how well it goes this year, but just how it's perceived more. Because we already are being prepared by other parents that have shown goats in both meat and dairy of what stigmas there are in the barn. And we've never shown goats before, so we're coming in completely naive. So we won't know who's who. Like, we won't know, like, oh, that lady is the dairy lady that hates horns, or, oh, that's the guy that is going to try to buy your animals for cheap, or, like, we don't know these faces and names. So it's probably a good thing, because we're just going to go in and just be pretty confident in what we're doing with our animals, and we'll know the rules. And, you know, if they push it back, then we'll just go to the barn manager and just be like, I don't know what to do with this lady, but tell her to back off or whatever.
The one little that I had heard with a friend neighbor of mine, her kids showed in 4-H with like a pygmy or Nigerian dwarf or something, and it was the only pet in that class for 4-H, and she won because she knew how to take care of the goat herself. Like, you know, she knew all these details, she knew all this stuff. So that was that was eye-opening. Again, I'm very not part of the 4-H stuff, but yeah, it'll be really cool to see how it progresses. Thank you for doing that. That's awesome.
Question: where do the Nigerian dwarfs show? What category?
In our dairy.
In dairy.
They can go dairy, but most of the time they go under meat. Really?
Okay.
But they can, if they are disbudded, they can show under dairy.
Right. I'd like to see the San Clementes in some kind of a dual purpose, because I would hate for them. What I've seen, they don't look like meat goats to me at all, but they don't really look like dairy goats either, you know, and to me they need to be like right down the middle and not pushed one way or the other, because I'd hate to see everybody start breeding, oh, we need more meaty goats, or oh, we've got to focus on these udders, and I think that would be a horrible mistake.
Yeah. So I can touch on this. So currently I'm writing a grant for the Youth Services Committee to get judging requirements for 4-H. What I want to see is what you want to see. I don't want to be pushing for these perfect udders and this dairy goat, and I don't want to see this girth, depth, big, meaty animal. That's just not what these animals are. So as I'm writing this, I have to look ahead for what our requirements are going to be. And I recently posted on the Breeders Association, or one of the groups on Facebook, about the current breed description with the Breeders Association. So if you go onto the website, talks about the breed description, it goes through, sometimes the horns are narrow and they turn, and sometimes they're wide, and sometimes they're straight, and sometimes the coats are long, and sometimes they're short. And it goes through every single part of these animals that make them so diverse and so amazing, and why we all want to breed them. And I want our judging standards to be off of that. I want to include every single animal that we have, because they're all super genetically important to what we're doing. And I don't want to exclude things. I don't want one person's goats, like we're all partial to what we're breeding for, but I don't want one person's goat to be the goat that we're trying to meet, because we're going to lose so many amazing qualities in it. So as I'm looking ahead and trying to get this judging category made, it's going to have to be completely unique to anything. I cannot base it on this perfect udder and how well they milk out to the dairy, and I can't base it on the depth and the measurement for the meat animals. Like, it's a good starting category. That's where we would have had to start ours, just because they can't really fit anywhere else easily with the horns. But we're also going to include in there that the horns will remain intact, just so that we don't have any issues with the 4-H, because I know that's huge. So one of the ideas that was brought to me is this four-horsing judging. They essentially take this sheet, and it says in it that, okay, I'm looking at this horse, and at its shoulder specifically, it is judged from most narrow to least narrow. And it's not this is better or that is better. It's just simply judging that one part of the animal. And so as it goes through, it looks at every single part of the animal and says, yes, the horns are closer together, or they're further apart, or the coat is longer or it's shorter. And then what that can do is you can either base it into a dairy category or into a meat category, and depending on how you want to show your animals when we get to that point. But overall, it would be more of a, this is what we're looking at for this animal, and this is how this specific animal ranks on this piece of paper, and then it would kind of be judge's discretion, as with any 4-H program, which animal's going to win. So and that's something I wanted to bring up today, because I don't know how everybody feels about judging based on the animal. The program itself is just going to have to be extremely unique to what we're all doing, and so that we can include everything. But I need a starting place. So I didn't know if anybody wanted to talk about how they feel about that.
Well, I'll add on to that. So I took the kids to a training, a 4-H livestock focused on goats showmanship training last week. And there was a gentleman, one of like the parent helpers, who's been doing this for 2 decades. And he was shearing a boar goat as a demonstration. And after he was all done, I asked him, I'm like, okay, so you showed me about boar goat, and over there they showed how to trim down a Nigerian dwarf. But if I don't want to trim my goat, like, what's the judge going to do? Like, you have a hairy goat. Like, what are you going to, like, what's the judge going to say to the students when they don't have a groomed goat? Like, it's been brushed and shampooed, but not cut. And he's like, well, just look at your breed standard. He goes, if it says don't cut, don't cut. And he goes, and if it doesn't say, then don't cut. I'm like, I like you. Thank you. So it seems like, at least from the other volunteers that support the programming, I think there's going to be support for us having our own standards. So that's optimistic. I felt good about that. But when every single time that the kids were in a circle and they had to like answer questions by one of the sample judges, and they would say, well, what breed of goat do you raise? And the kids would say San Clemente Island, and they would just blank face, like look at the kids like, what did you say? They never heard of it. They had no idea, even though they teach and coach goats. They were just clueless. They had no idea. And so there's a lot of work to be done. And I looked through all of the books that 4-H has published, and they might mention Spanish goats, but that's about the closest that we get to like a heritage breed being mentioned. There's definitely a lot of like advocacy and coming up with these judging criteria and informing judges around the nation about what it is. But yeah, coming up with that framework is going to be a challenge. And I don't have any good answers, but I'm really glad that you came up with or found that example. Was it Jana that suggested the horses?
I don't remember.
Okay, that's fine. I don't remember.
So
horses too, so I just thought maybe it was her. But yeah, the sooner we can get this, then the sooner we can start sharing that information. And if it's on the website, so people Google it and they're like, because I tried like Googling goat judging scorecards. I'm like, there's really not good information out there other than like the Dairy Association. So
yes, it's been very challenging. Even like, how are we going to fund? We have to train a judge who has good standing, but how do I know what to price that at? Because nobody has any prices anywhere. It's been really tricky. But I do want to include like fun facts of the San Clemente Island goats when we're training that judge, so that the kids can answer some questions too.
Yeah.
Question. Okay, so I've not shown my Alpines, but I have always made a point to buy registered Alpines because I feel like I'm getting, generally speaking, a healthier goat. And I have raised sort of kind of following, I have people that purchase from me who do show, and they've kind of shared some things that they're looking for in a goat. And the reasons behind their standards are, of course, for a healthier goat. And so, like, they're like, you need good udder attachment. Okay, I mean, to me, that seems like a logical thing that you would want healthy goats to have good udder attachments. I mean, are there health-related things, that you could include in the standards or in the judging categories or something? I mean, a goat that has good body condition scoring and good, their hair quality, their health overall is going to come through and be judged on that.
Yes. So we do want to do, like, care of the goats. And it will really just have to be basic care at this point. So the coat quality, are you trimming the hooves? And a lot of it is more showmanship based, like how well is your goat responding to you? Because we have such a wide variety of udders, if we start, I don't know if we're at our numbers currently to start selecting for this great udder attachment. And, that's something that we can change down the line as we start to increase our numbers. We would have to retrain judges, but at this point, I think we're just looking for, like, a good quality animal. Is it sick? Does it, I mean, there's not
I didn't even know how many goats have poor udder attachment. I mean, no, they have multiple teats, but,
yeah.
I've got a sum total of one doe. So, I mean, I don't know what to expect, but.
We have one doe right now that, like, according to dairy standards, has poor udder attachment. They would not breed her. They would have called her immediately. And that's just, I mean, she has 4 functioning teats currently, and she can raise triplets by herself, and she is a rock star mom. She's hardy, and she's got good body conformation and everything, but, the dairy standards say that she does need to be breeding. So, and then I have some that have, like, this perfect little nice dairy attachment udder at the top. So it's just really hard to do this.
Okay.
The judging standard.
And I would say generally as well, I think that's where the numbers are, and we can revisit that as like a breeders association some years down the road, but like not breeding for a doe, or not maybe continuously breeding a doe she can't nurse would be a reason to not have that doe have babies anymore unless you want bottle babies. But those are maybe some genetics you don't want to pass down to offspring possibly. But yeah, I have the same, like I have like udders that look like this that are just like, what? You know, and then it's fine, but it looks bonkers. And then I have really nice, you know, one teat per side. They are all over the place, but as long as they can raise healthy kids, that's kind of the standard that I kind of have anyways. I haven't had anything, a doe, except for this year where she was this old and she just didn't want to produce milk. So, you know, but yeah, it's just that whole udder genetic thing too is really interesting. Like what is being passed down is, I don't know. I don't really know.
It is, and then so back to what you're saying, like the good genetics, and if she can't produce milk, I also believe in the super hardy goat, and I just don't know how to convey that in judging. Like we are all aiming for, like, that is one of the big things, is they're the super hardy goat, they know how to survive, they're fantastic, but I can't really convey that in judging. Like I can't just look at it and be like, oh, you've never had a parasite problem. You know, I agree from a breeder standpoint, though.
That was something I was kind of curious about with 4-H. Like I had looked into quite a few years ago in Wisconsin for a registry. It was a dual purpose or a multi-purpose registry, and it would register any goat if it based on like what the like statistics or like all of the like the not measurements, but you know, like what the growth rate was, but it was asking like what you were feeding that goat versus like the weight gain versus like the milk production. I want to say a really good example of this, it's breed specific, is Kiko goats, and it's Cup Canyon Kikos, I think it is. You see them a lot on the Goat Journal stuff, but like all the statistics and all the research and all the information that they keep is really important for their breed, because they have Kikos that can have like quads out on crazy canyons and eat brush and raise everybody really well and put, you know, these kids thrive and the does thrive, like, and they have the genetics and stuff behind that too, and that's really cool. Those are a completely different. Those are not San Clementes. They're still a big beefy looking goat, but I wonder like how can you bring in like some of the data that you collect into 4-H showing? Is that a thing?
I know in Ohio they would do like a great milk out is what they would call it, and that was more for the dairy standards, and they would have the kids not milk their goat for the 12-hour period, and then in the morning they would milk the goat, and then the kid would have to talk about what they were feeding it, and the parents weren't allowed to help, and they had to do it in a certain time, and I mean, that's the only thing I know of. I don't know if the BIs might have some input on this.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with us having anything. We also have a very small number of goats that are shown in our county, so and that's been a concern, is because we're being developed so rapidly in our county that it's one of the things that our county really was supportive of, is like, we need animals back in the barn. So they were like, yes, like we're getting more animals in the barn. They're really excited. So I think that if we were to come up with something, I think that they would be really enthusiastic, especially if it was something that brought in spectators, because they want that interaction. They want the public to be informed and participate, but I think they're just at a loss for maybe what to do to gain more attention. So the milk out, I've not heard of that, but I'm sure that it happens somewhere, maybe just not in our county. I think that dairy cows do something like that at the state level. I'll have to look at our the little agenda book, but I'll have to look. I'll check that out.
We were very blessed in our last location. We had this huge county fair with all these goats, and like we were super excited. And we moved here, and they don't even know what a goat is. They just started the program. So kind of in the same situation you guys are, trying to pave the way to make this happen with no starting point, really.
Yeah, during the training that I took the kids to, they had talked about, like, for the meat goats, they talked about, like, keeping track of how many pounds your animal gains every day and what type of feed are you feeding them. And and they were talking about all these extra conditioners and extra feed changes and things like that. And the kids and I looked at each other, we're just like, yeah, we just feed our goats, hey? Like, because they're not in it to win it. They're not in it to get the most weight gain or to be at the top this or top that. Like, we're not sending ours to market, and they're more pets than anything else right now for us. So we just kind of chuckled because some of these kids are like taking notes on like, oh, this brand is better than this brand. And it's like, whatever. Like, our goats will never see that. They're not going to be on pelletized food. They're going to be on hay, but they're going to forage in the woods when they can. It's great. But we don't have a herd of, 180 goats. We have 16, so we can do that right now. But people that are raising for commercial meat are at a whole different scale than we are. Yeah.
Yeah, and for the more on the judging, kind of Victoria and I had messaged back and forth a little bit, but I think a really important part is it a healthy looking goat? Is an important part of it. And, once you see a number of San Clementes, it's a lot easier to do that. Like Christy and I were messaging back, and Christy messaged me, and I was like, no, she's looking really good.
Yeah.
And they are different. And it took me a little while, but I'm thankful that I have Erin. I've been over to Erin's place a number of times, and I ask questions. And some of that is just hands-on, and it's so nice, when you do have people that are closer by that you can pop over at their house, and learn from. So, and that's just been great for us.
That's awesome. It was a really huge experience for me, though, when I went on that West Coast road trip and stopped at a couple breeder friends' farms, because I was just like, because I still, like, I was going through this period last summer or whatever. I'm like, God, my goats are skinny. Like, I'm just like, I thought I got used to it, but I'm like, God, they just seem skinny. And then I was looking at everybody else's, and I'm like, nope, they're the same. They're like, their body structure is so unique as well, and that was something kind of coming around to judging too. Is just like, I've had goat friends come out, and they're like giving my San Clementes like a hairy eyeball, and I'm like, no, put your hands on them. Like there's a difference between like when you can feel the bones in the body versus just like they look skinny, but they're like, you're like, no, there's good flesh over those bones. They're just such a weird tiny bone structure.
Yeah. And that's why it's so hard to go ahead. I was just going to say, even between the ones that we have that we got from Erin Link and the other ones that we received, Debbie, right, as a Marion Wonderful, or Diane. They're just the fact that they're just from different herds. They're just so different, and whether that's because they came from different states, so they have different hardiness, or if it's just the genetics, or both. I'm sure it's a little bit of each. But there's definitely differences between the way that they hold themselves and the way they take on weight. And like Georgia is getting pretty fat because she's eating like Paisley because she lives with her. And so she eats like she's nursing, but she's not. So it's like she was so skinny for so long. It's like, oh, she's like 62 pounds.
But when we say fat, she's like 62 pounds, and the skinny one is 58.
Yeah.
So you're talking 4 pounds. It's not much difference in weight, but you can see it.
Yeah.
But Paisley also has a lot more. She's the one that's a mom. She has a lot more in her udders, and so she does drop a lot of that in there. So it's been kind of fun. I just weighed all of our goats last week, just because I'm trying to collect more data. And so I think that'll be important for the 4-H part of it also, but then also for people who do want to raise them as meat, want to know more. So I'm trying to do a Google spreadsheet on ours. And I actually encourage everyone to do, even if they're not collecting data real well, even little pieces of data, even if you have a year between weighing, you're going to see, some differences. And I think that's important for us long term.
Yeah. And I just remembered this as we were talking. I don't know if other states do this or not, but our Minnesota 4-H does a program called Stock Talks, as in SPOCK, livestock. where the kids can make a video about anything livestock related and send it into the state, and then the state reviews it, and then the top ones like make it to being put on the website or on the state's 4-H page. I'm going to try to convince one or both of our kids to do that about San Clemente's, but actually talking about the differences in their body form and how they don't, like we can even compare it to our pygmy Nigerians. That actually might make a really good stock talk. So
you've got a kid that does theater. Of course he can do that.
But he's not as passionate about the goats as his sister, so it's kind of like work their skills and their willingness, and it's kind of
I am.
So that's the hard thing. He's not motivated by money yet. We're not quite there yet. Driving, I think it'll be different. But
along those lines, I was thinking the other day that maybe in the Breeders Association, we can do something for the youth services program where the kids, and it could be like a sentence or two, like, why do you love San Clemente's? Why do you want to get into this breed? And I was going to talk about it here, and I completely forgot to talk to you guys about it, just being crazy busy. But I don't know if anybody's interested in that, just a couple, maybe even a paragraph for why they love San Clemente's, just to get more engagement within our breeders group, because I think we're really going to have to get the ball rolling to get other people to want to care.
Do you think it would be better to do it as like a video, and then you could splice together the cuts and the kids like I love this, and then you could just
that'd be fun.
Are you talking about doing a video with just kids speaking or adults too?
I was thinking kids, if they can.
Well, I would say the kids. The video would be fun though. I'm not good at editing, so if somebody is good at editing.
We can voluntold our son. He's good. He's good at that.
Video editing.
Okay.
He'd love to be behind the scenes on everything when it comes to recorded things. So, yeah, we could help pull that together. I think that would be good.
Yeah.
And even if they don't own a goat in their family, they could still talk about what they're curious about, like what excites them. Maybe they saw one at somebody else's property or just saw the website. Are you able to edit this live?
There's also this is a totally different topic, but this reminded me a little bit of a zoo inclusion, because the few zoos that have San Clemente's, that'd be kind of fun to include them with like people coming through and seeing them, and they could write a little sentence or piece about them seeing a San Clemente at whatever zoo. So
that's a good idea. Other than Miller Park, what other zoos have them? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, like Rosamond, Miller Park Zoo sold to some of my goats that I did a trade with them, some of their offspring to a zoo in Michigan. There's a document that has some zoos listed on it.
Okay.
And so there's like Bergland, I forget, somewhere. There's maybe 5 zoos that have some.
Columbus.
There's the Dodge one in Minnesota.
Yep, Dodge Nature Center.
Yeah.
Yep. I think Lisa has one on her mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was Olson Zoo or something like that in Ohio, not far from Columbus. Because I was looking on the website to find out, where there's SCI goats closer to me.
Yeah.
She sold some to Columbus Zoo, actually. Yeah.
And there's Davis Farmland. They're not really a zoo, I guess, but some kind of a tourist attraction on the East Coast. I've been working with them.
There was Plymouth plantation as well that they had Arapahoe.
I couldn't hear you, Erin.
I think I have this thing needs to go. Anyways, it's a Plymouth plantation. They have the Plymouth line of San Clemente as well. I'm not sure if they still have them, but Sarah lives not too far from them, so.
Okay. Sounds good. And Victoria, did you have anything else on the judging side of things?
think.
Yeah.
You froze. Did you?
Oh, did you have
Sorry.
anything on the judging side of things that you wanted to touch on, or did you get all of those?
I think we're good.
Okay, because we can also talk about the leasing program, how we have it worked out, and just for full disclosure, we're 3 or 4 meetings in right now. But Jenny has worked with our kids lease llamas. Our kids started leasing llamas in 2020, which was a great year to start doing that. And so she's actually worked with that program, which is what kind of got us going on here. And he's very thankful that we're not leaving the leasing program with the llamas, because somebody does quite a bit of the communication on that part of it too.
Yeah, our llama coach, when I, in a very excited voice, told me that we were starting the leasing program with our goats, he's like, "Oh, are you leaving?" I'm like, no, we're doing it all. But so Minnesota, and I think all states, allow in the 4-H program the students to lease animals if they don't own animals. And the advantage of leasing an animal as a child, as a student, is that you don't have to have land for an animal. So if you don't have the financial means, if you don't have the yard, if you don't have the acreage, don't have the parent support, you can still work with livestock and still get the benefits of doing some of the chores and doing some of the training and the showmanship and all of the, a little bit of the challenges, along with the pride getting to show the animal at the fair. For the past 5 years, the kids have been showing llamas through a leasing program. And so how that has worked is that once a week, the students get to go to the llama farm and they get to work with Dan, the coach, and he teaches them something new each week. And now that the kids have done this year after year, they've built a relationship with the same animal. Well, our son, the same animal for 5 years, our daughter now the 2nd year with this animal. She's had some changes because the animals haven't always been there that she's picked. Then they get to take them to the fair and get to show off their animal that they've built this relationship with to their friends, their family, strangers. They get to do a lot of speaking about the animals to the public. So they have questions about, like, what's the difference between a llama and alpaca, or what do they eat, or do they spit? And so the kids get, you know, kind of silly questions that they like to be proud of the answers that they have. So that's inspired us now to do the same thing with our goats for other families, is to give that opportunity to other kids. So given our situation with our county and how subdivided and developed our county is, most families don't have livestock. They might have backyard chickens, but that's about it. So a lot of our families are super enthusiastic because they maybe grew up raising animals, or they went to grandma's house and saw animals, and like, oh, they get to actually like work with them and not just pet them at the zoo. So we have, I think, 5 households, 7 new kids other than our 2 of our own, and we'll be having them do everything from like understanding the body parts to grooming and feeding, and at some point we'll have them cleaning the stalls. We just haven't gotten there yet. We'll probably have like a barn clean out day and just get messy, and they'll love it and we'll love it, and having extra hands that are motivated is always fun. And that's pretty much the only like payment that they'll owe us this year, is like a barn cleanup day. But and they'll help us staff the county fair, so cleaning the stalls and water buckets and things like that. And so we don't have to charge for the leasing program. Our llama coach has not charged for it. We're not charging for it this year since the lease grant that we got is going to cover pretty much everything. In the future, we'll probably charge something, even if it's really meager, maybe just to cover like a new collar or something new for the fair that we need to invest in. So not because it's not to profit off of it, it's more of a just helping,
it's a commitment thing,
and then to help it make it not be a burden on us, so we don't lose steam, because we don't want to get burnt out. Our friend Dan, who coaches the llamas, he has 11 llamas, and he doesn't charge a penny to anybody or any year. He covers every vet expense. He's covered the emergency vet expense that happened at State Fair and the animal ended up dying. Like, he doesn't ask for anything. Super generous guy. maybe too generous. I don't want him to get burnt out, and I don't want to get burnt out from doing it with the goats. So if we can make it sustainable, then we can do it for a longer time. So
as time goes on too, if it's like the llama program, he has 30 kids start and then 20 to 25 follow through.
Yeah.
Even more than 30 sign up. And so that's where once you get established, then having a fee, and you can always waive fees too. But it makes people more dedicated. They're not going to bow out as quickly. They feel like they're paying something for it, so they're going to be more likely to show up because they've already paid for it.
Yeah, and that is something we've already had troubles with, is people not coming to practice yet. We've only had 2 weeks of practice, and we have some kids that haven't come at all. So it's like, you follow up with the parents. It's like, are you coming? Like, you don't owe me anything, but it'd just be nice to know if you're coming, so I know if you're done. Because if you're done, then I won't keep waiting for you. Because we're excited for it, and the other kids are excited to have more kids there. So having 9 kids participate is way more fun than just 1 or 2 showing up. So, and I don't think the animals care yet. I don't think that they necessarily look forward to it or get upset. I think they're still kind of in this like, oh, strangers. But once they build this bond with the kids, maybe they'll be like, realize that their kid's missing. Because the llamas do that for sure. If there's a kid missing, they're looking around. Like if my kids don't come together and they see my daughter, they'll look for my son. They'll be like searching the crowd, like, where is my kid? I don't know if the goats are going to get there, but
we'll let you know if they do.
We'll let you know, yes. So then for leasing paperwork, our state offers us a form. And I already lost it.
She's digging through the box looking for it. So they offer a form to help us out. So it's nice because there is actually a lot of support from 4-H. It's just you have to reach out for it. They're not going to hand it to you on a silver platter.
So the form is called the Minnesota 4-H Animal Science Lease Information Form, and it just asks for the student's information, the animal's owner's information, address, then the animal's name, date of birth, if they have registration numbers, and then they ask for the students to sign it too, like that they're committing to good animal husbandry with this animal. The leaser, the owner, does not have to sign it in Minnesota. They used to, but they don't have to anymore. And then that form just gets uploaded into the student's 4-H account, and so then when they go to show at the fair, if there's any discrepancies on whose animal goes to who or who's in charge of either the student or the animal, it's all documented. So it's pretty straightforward and pretty clean cut. We've never had any issues with it. The llamas require photos, but the goats, at least in Minnesota, didn't require photos. So I was all prepared. I had photos of all of the goats, and I sent them to all the parents in a drive, and they're just like, we don't have to upload photos. I'm like, what? Like, I thought as the owner I didn't have to upload it, but I expected all the kids that were leasing would have to, but they didn't have to have the photos. So I was kind of disappointed. I wanted them to have the photos everywhere. But so then let's see, for how we're running the leasing is that we're hosting classes twice a week. So families can bop back and forth. They can come once or twice, whatever their summer schedule is allowing for them. Our meetings are running about an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes. That's what all the kids have attention spans for, and I think it's a good, it seems to be a good amount of time. We do now have a running bathroom in the barn, so we don't have to worry about kids coming into the house, which is really nice, but we could just wash hands out there and bathroom breaks out there, and it's totally separate than our dogs and our personal life in the house, so that's been nice. Let's see, communication. We set up a group email on, I don't have a bias towards Gmail or MSN. I have both, but both allowed me to make group emails, so I just launch emails from that group box, and that's been really easy to just send it out to everybody, and then reply. But if you're going to start a leasing program, is get commitments from people because it's really hard when you just leave open-ended and just are given a choice to not have to respond. They don't usually respond. And maybe it's a 4-H thing because everything's volunteer driven and just kind of a go with the flow kind of attitude. But I would say, like, that's the pet peeve of mine, is not hearing back from somebody when somebody offers you something. It's like, okay, what are we going to do? And silence. So maybe like multiple choice emails and things like that, just like, what's going to work for you, polls or something. And then with 4-H, there's not a lot of like guidelines of what we have to teach them with the leasing program. It's really a lot of like on our own, like we're choosing to give the textbooks to the kids, but we're not required to. But 4-H does offer a list of resources, so they could find these things on their own if they wanted to, but we're going to offer them study guides and stuff, and hopefully that they'll be ready. At the county fair, they will be given a quiz. At least all of the livestock categories in Minnesota get these little pop quiz type things. It's like a multiple choice and a short essay for the older kids. So they'll have basic questions on like anatomy or diseases or breeding and things like that. So the kids do need to know a little bit of basic information, at least if they want to have a chance at an award. Let's see, I don't know.
That sounds about right.
I think it's about all we're covering for the leasing program.
Just a quick question. If this, I feel a bit bad, I might have missed it if it was covered. Is there any thoughts on insurance with any of this stuff?
Aha.
Insurance? That's Georgia's territory. We have insurance on the farm, and you know, an umbrella is a cheap insurance, and it's, you know, reality is you're probably not going to need it, but when you do need it, it's nice to have. And I don't worry as much about insurance as some people, but you know, I think it's smart to have that, and we did talk with our insurance agent about it, and they weren't too worried about us doing that.
We also we don't require the parents to stay, but so far all of the parents except for one has stayed. And the one that,
and we know her
the
well.
one that left, we know from llamas too, so we know her very well. And so, not that nothing bad could possibly happen, but I think that if anything did happen, it would be handled with respect. So having the parents on site has been a little bit of a relief too, is just knowing that they're going to see something happen if anything does happen. I did get the background check for being a 4-H volunteer already from llamas, so that is something that I'm like an approved adult for 4-H. So I know. Well, because you know where this is going. I mean, because bad things have happened, and you know, to somebody somewhere in the past, they had to set some standards. So there's depending on the programming, they might ask for there to be like, you know, if it's an overnight thing, you have to have one of each gender and da 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 da. But anyways, long story short, at our capacity, I think we've got our bases covered. But it's a good question though, because some states or some insurances might have different requirements or different needs, and if you're going to do things with kids without their parents present, because the parents need to drop off the kids or because you don't have space for that many bodies, it's probably something to be open to asking those questions.
Minnesota also has something, I know, with farms, you know, that you can post, and it's kind of a warning: you are coming on a property that is a farm. Farms are inherently.
Yeah, we don't have that sign, but we should get one.
We should get one. We should talk to George.
We'll ask George for one.
I know. I was gonna say he totally has that stuff. He's the dude. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I throw him under the bus when I can.
But George is pretty good about his biosecurity and his rules and insurances and things like that. And even though we might be a little further on the other side of being a little more relaxed about that, we did ask the kids to make sure, like for biosecurity, that they come with a different set of shoes that are their barn shoes. We didn't care if they were boots or sneakers, as long as they're closed-toed and they're only for our property, just in case. We've not had any issues with any avian flu or other problems in our region. Minnesota, yes, but not locally. But just to be safe, and also for their own good, because they're going to go home with chicken poop on their shoes, and I don't want you coming with your fancy new Converses and go home all mad that your shoelace is chewed and there's poop stuck to the bottom. So
I guaranteed them that their shoes would have poop on them every time they come.
Yeah. So that was about the extent of our requests for safety, though. It was closed-toed shoes.
Yeah, and you know, we learned a bit too with leash or collars and handling equipment for them too. And something that really shocked me was we tried different collars on different goats, and we saw what worked, and then we bought all of one type. And it's the one that has the leather handle and just a chain. And I was amazed at how well all of the goats responded to that on them. Within just a few corrections, that even the toughest goat was really easy to deal with. Whereas if we had a halter where it was connected on the side, they didn't listen. They pulled away and they didn't like it. So we're learning, and we'll share those learning times with. Kind of just in general, my plan is to actually have some videos uploaded to the YouTube channel that we have for the association, and they'll all be reviewed by board members and that before we do that. But just to help people out so they have a place to go to be able to see that type of stuff. So, yeah. Does anyone have any questions or want to add anything?
Does anybody know why the dairy animals can't have horns and the meat animals can? I mean, using the logic that, oh, somebody's going to get hurt by those horns or they're going to hurt your other goat. Well, I mean, does that not apply in the meat goat world?
It's the udders.
They worry about the udders. That's what they call
okay.
them. Because if they get injured and you're a little bit quiet, Lisa. Could you repeat yourself?
I read something about fitting into the milking stanchions. The milking.
Yeah, I vote that down because I could get any of my horned animals in a stanchion. But the udder, I mean, I'll buy that. I'll have to have horned goats for a while to see how they treat each other. They do dig their head under each other's belly. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. But, you know, I don't hear a lot of people saying, oh, my God, my SCI's udder got ruptured by its, you know, another goat's horn. You know, I don't know.
It's the one time I know, or one time at band camp moment, you know.
I think if it's like kind of with the meat, if it's a commercial dairy and everything is standardized, they want everything like as streamlined as possible if for commercial purposes. And so whether it's like you mentioned, Lisa, about the stanchion or and how they fit into the milking bay or at the show or with their peers, you know, if they get into a fight or whatever, it's just like, nope, they're just eliminating any possible conflict, any possible danger, threat. So I can see it being both the stanchion and the udders.
I had research on practices, and like in Europe, they don't dehorn, they don't no disbudding, they don't shave the goats down for shows or anything. And so I think it almost seems like it's something that just became a rule and has just stayed that way.
Yeah. Well, and you look at where most of the goats are in the world. I mean, you look over in like India, and you know, I mean, they got like billions of goats over there, and I think their udders are fine. You know, I don't know. I don't even get it, but whatever. I just wondered. I've been raising these goofy alpines and disbudding them for 18, 17 years because I quit last year. You know, for these people, for their market, so they could show their goats, and it's like, is this really necessary? And last year I just like said, that's it. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. No more.
Yeah,
So-
I think I was talking to people about dairy stuff when we were at this training because we knew that we were entered under the meat category. So I just kind of focused my attention on the meat. But when the gentleman was doing the shearing and he was talking about like, okay, so this is a female, so we're going to do this kind of trimming to enhance her feminine qualities. I'm like, it's a goat. Like, and he's like, well, if I shear it this way, you can see her.
I see where I've gone wrong.
And I'm like, and I was like, it's a goat. I'm like, I'm in the wrong place, but I'm not. Like, I need to hear these things because I know that that's who we're surrounded by is, you know, people that have been trained to shear their, you know, to trim their goats this way or to disbud this way or whatever these like silly show. I don't know. I shouldn't say silly because now we're doing it. But like the expectations of what makes a better animal, you know,
we're going to shine up the hooves and horns. So
we might put beeswax on their hooves and their horns just to like pretty them up, but it's also good for them to, you know, get moisturized, I guess. So, but I don't know. We're also people that don't wear makeup, and well, you don't wear makeup. I don't even wear makeup. Like we're just go with the flow, natural people. So to see people dolling up their animals is, I don't know. I can go with like silly pajamas in 1 or 2 photos, but I don't understand the extra haircuts and what was the other thing that they were doing? Oh, he was shearing her front chest to make her chest look differently than the male goat. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a goat.
Yeah.
And the chest is not her udder. Like, I don't know. I don't know where we're going with this, but I don't. It's so silly, but he breeds boar goats, and so that's what his clients ask for, and that's what the kids have been, no pun intended, groomed to do, is to groom their goats this way. So I don't know. We'll have to set our own standards, Victoria, and make sure that we don't have to have silly haircuts.
Well,
I want to clip my goat.
No, I don't want. I have plenty to do without that.
Yes, I don't, and it's so big. Like in the meat world, they want to make sure that you're seeing the right like loin and all the
any deficiencies. Like if you see how this is like shaped the way we want it to be, he's like, if I don't trim it as low here and I trim it more here, it's going to give me a shadow and it's going to make it look big. I'm like, but it's not bigger. Like the judge puts its hand on there, it's going to know it's hair and not meat. Like, I don't know, whatever. But he had all kinds of tricks and strategies, and he was a really nice guy. Like, he was very helpful. I just was kind of surprised. It was an eye-opening experience to understand the goat industry better. But I think that's a point that we need to make sure that we play out, is like that we are not part of a commercial breeding program. Like, this is not, I don't know, we're not breeding these just to I don't know. And that was something about the nutrition. He's like, somebody asked a question about, well, if these goats never see hay and like all they eat is pellets all of their life, you know, is that a disadvantage because they're ruminant animals? And he's like, they only live 5 months and then they're butchered. It's like, oh my gosh, like I see his point, but at the same time, it's like, it's still a living being, even if it's destined to be meat. It's still a ruminant. It's still, won't it be a healthier, better quality animal if it had eaten hay too? But that's not what his farm, that wasn't the clipping guy, it was somebody else. But I don't know. It was just a really interesting. Hi, ladies.
I'm losing it over here. They're all breaking in. So
that's all right.
Only now.
But I think it'd be good to maybe open up another chain of conversation on judging ideas, or maybe if you get like another set of outlines and just get some feedback based on just a starting point so we can pick it apart. Not that I know what it's going to look like yet, but.
Be the squeaky wheel.
That's something that I don't know if this is an appropriate time to throw this out or not, but in my Kuni Pig Association breeders group, they will have a topic like for example, the judging, something that they want to change about their rules or how they're doing things, and they'll put out a poll, okay? And so when they do that, though, they don't give me why they're wanting it this way or that way, and I always feel like I have been pushed into choosing one of these answers, if that makes sense. So if for any topic that we put out to our membership for a vote or a poll or anything, if we can flesh out the whys behind, like if you want to say we are not going to eliminate, poor udder attachment or whatever, just whatever example, I'd like to see some explanation paragraphs with things like that, just so people will know what they're voting on. But especially if it's something we're going to end up it be in our rules or our, not our breed standard, but you know what I'm trying to say. If it's going to be something fairly permanent to us, I feel like the CUNY group has, they've done a good job, but there's been a lot of things I just felt left out on. I didn't understand. So anyway, take it or leave it.
I think it's good for both when we propose the question and when we post whatever the new judging standards are or whatever, is because it's good for both the owners and the judges to know the reason why or why not.
Right. And we've got, I was looking at the Facebook page. We've got 593 people in that Facebook page. And do y'all know what our membership is? It's like
what is our
nowhere near that many. It's like, who are these people? And do they have goats? And are they interested in goats? And so,
like, we are one member as a household, but 2 people. And
right, but okay, cut that in half. That's 250. We don't have anywhere near that many members.
But there's people like Lisa who aren't members yet, but are interested, or our friend M who has horses that's interested.
Right. So there's a lot of people there. What I'm saying is there's a lot of people there that don't have a clue, where all this stuff is coming from, and these goats have multiple teats. Is that okay? And so some discussion to go along with any, polls or anything.
I definitely think that's a good idea. I really want everybody's opinion on this. Like, I know there's been a lot of animosity to say from, before, and I just want to move forward. I want the goats to do good. I want to hear what everybody has to say, and I want to make a collective decision based on what everybody has. So I definitely am completely fine, open, honest, any questions, and kind of lay it all out.
I actually think we're in the right direction, and I think things are going real well. So I've talked with a lot of people in the last few months, that are newer to the group, and they're really happy. Or some people who've been, on the outlier, around for a long time and has bred for a lot longer than I have, that are becoming more active.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. Partly selfishly because we're pushing this program locally, but I'm excited for kids to be having another opportunity. And we've been expressing this when we try to validate why we're trying to do this to other people that are just clueless. Just what are you doing? It's like, well, you understand biodiversity, right? You support there being more than one type of plant in your garden, right? And it's I'm it's basically the same thing. Don't, if you make everything the same thing and you overbreed or overimprove too much, then you've lost so many opportunities. And so usually once you start talking about biodiversity, you can lure people back in. So if we just keep using that as okay, how do we talk to somebody who has no idea what we're talking about? And because people do have an idea of what's ideal or what's right, and I don't know, I guess our family's never really conformed, so it's a great animal for us.
The bucks don't stink, right, Christy?
The bucks don't.
That's right. That is my number one thing.
I've had 4 people this week say, well, I don't want goats because they stink. And I'm like, fine.
Yeah. Do what?
That's what I'm excited about. I can have a
Yeah. Yeah. It is. If you've not owned goats before, having a standard buck on your property, everybody for blocks would know it if they were more than about a year old. It's awful, but not these. It's so amazing. Yeah.
It's nice to enjoy the nice fall breeze without the stench of the
Mhm.
buck.
Mhm. Mhm.
We still have the smell of our buck in our buck pen a little bit. I smelled it yesterday and I was like, I still smell Hershey.
Hershey's our old buck.
Yeah, I've got collars that are like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can't get it out of the clothes. I mean, it's amazing. But yeah, our bucks now, we can hug them and snuggle them, and we're not disgusted.
I'm not disgusted when he comes back inside.
So, yeah. Does anyone have anything else to add?
I just had one thought there when you were discussing the biodiversity and everything, and when you're telling people about SCIs, and sometimes the reaction I get when I tell somebody, oh, this is a critically endangered goat, then they immediately, you can kind of see their mind go, oh, they're sickly, or they almost died out because they couldn't survive. So I quickly get to the part about, they're endangered because they were doing too well, on this island, and they were taken over and they were just going crazy, and we killed them. So I think that's an important part of the story, to get out there before people get it in their head there's something wrong with them, and that's why they're endangered. So
the other thing about that too is people hear critically endangered and they think we're paying, $5,000 for each of these goats, and they're not realizing they're totally affordable and attainable. This is good for Lisa too, because you haven't gotten yours, is my understanding. Is when I tell people, well, $500 is not unusual to pay for that plus transportation, and they're like, oh, I expected it to be, in the thousands of dollars, not in the hundreds of dollars. And I said, just because it's about the demand. There's not the huge demand on them. So I like that portion of them, that they're affordable.
Yes, that's one of the biggest issues. The people hear critically endangered, they're like, oh, they're super expensive. But I mean, if you want to pay for a good quality milk dough, they're about $500 anyway. So you're really getting a good price for your buck.
I was going to say, good bang for your buck.
Yeah, yes, that. So I'm a little distracted, but okay.
So yeah, that's what I'm interested in. Is I've been explaining it to some coworkers that, like, the big seed bank in I think it's Norway or Sweden, where they have all of the samples of all the seeds from around the world stored to preserve them in case we need them in the future. And that's what I describe the goats as being like. It's a different set of genetics, and we should preserve that instead of letting it go extinct.
Yeah.
And in my case, if we want to milk goats, I don't want 6 gallons of milk a day from a herd of goats or whatever, because it's just me and my husband. If I can milk once or twice a week and get what we need for the week, that's fine. And then if we have an extra, weather that is going to go to freezer camp, then we have meat for the winter or whatever. So I look at it a lot from a homesteading kind of point of view. All the breeds I'm interested in are like the guinea hog, I want Icelandic chickens, I want all like heritage or ancient breeds that, I could get Nigerian dwarfs if I wanted to. There's farms right around here that have them, but if I'm going to breed an animal and use it, I want to help like preserve something that, needs preserved.
Yeah. Well, that was a big piece of it for us, was, okay, if we're going to have animals on our property, they need to like be providing something for us and serving a purpose. And like, we don't need 16 goats. We don't really need to feed 16 goats, but we love having them, and knowing that we're supporting the San Clementes makes it like more fulfilling. It's not just having goats. So, and then it's a fun conversation piece. And some people get it, and some people just don't care, and other people are like super like tell me more, and then it's like, oh, I found my people.
Yeah. We went to a festival. Oops, were you saying something, Victoria?
We always market them as like the homesteader's dream goats. They really provide so much of what everybody wants. And then with our military background, we always, throw in the punch like, well, the Navy was exterminating them, so we needed to get them off the island. And then people are always super interested in them at that point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's always a good point that people really get. I like to wear my SCI shirt when I go places, because then it strikes up conversation, because if people know goats, they're like, what goat is that? I don't recognize it. And that happened this year, and a guy and his wife and I and Jenny talked probably about 20 plus minutes.
Yeah, we were at a fiber festival, and a gentleman looked at his shirt and he's like, what's that goat?
He was just blown away with the horns, and that's Laurel's goat on that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that about wraps up everything for tonight.
Lisa, did you have more? I know I don't want you to feel like you didn't get to participate if you had more questions or something.
Oh, we're having trouble hearing.
Oh, sorry. I just I didn't want to interrupt because I'm just here to learn. But I'm good. Thanks for letting me join in.
Oh, you bet.
Okay.
And are you currently in the market for buying goats right now, or are you in the I'm prepping myself?
I wish we were. We still have to put in infrastructure. We don't have any fencing currently on the property. So, and I'm new to like farm fencing, so I'm still doing the research on that part of it. As far as I know, we want woven wire, sheep and goat fencing, but
5 foot.
5
Yeah,
foot? Okay.
They can jump. Seriously.
So yeah, we're still looking at pricing. I haven't even started looking at pricing on that yet. So while I'm hoping that by next year we'll be ready, it might be next year fall. It just depends on how the money works out. So.
Yep, totally get that, and that's why I was asking. That's why I was asking those questions. Because if you're looking for one, and when it's time to look for one, put it out there. The website has classifieds, and some of us are working on trying to get starter herds so that you can go to one person. Christy and I have talked at lengths about that. And so there's more, I think there's going to be more starter herds being available, and set up that way so that people don't have to work real hard to find them.
That'd be awesome.
Especially if you want a breeding pair, so that you've got a buck that's going to be the right fit for a doe.
I don't know how many acres you've got or how much fencing you're looking at, but you might look into the NRCS programs, the National Resources Conservation Service programs. They pay for a lot of different things. They pay for fencing, for thinning trees, they pay for ponds, they pay for irrigation, water lines, livestock feeders, I don't know, all kinds of programs. And they helped us with like literally $50,000 worth of funding. Wow. But they don't pay all, they just pay a portion, and then you have to pay the rest or do the labor or whatever. But they don't do perimeter fence, they'll only do cross fencing inside your property.
Okay.
But anyway, you might do some research on that if you're interested.
Yeah, I was also going to look at the grants that the Livestock Conservancy has, because I saw that they did have grants specifically for fencing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was going to recommend you look into, the Livestock Conservancy has a micro grant program.
Yeah, I'm trying to get myself as educated as I can on stuff like that.
I've been at it 20 years with goats. It's never ending.
So, sounds good. Well, I think we can close that out. And next, let's see, July I forget because Sarah changed it. Is it the third?
Third week, isn't it? Third Wednesday.
Yep.
Today's the 9th.
July.
Trying to get my calendar to work.
Jenny thinks it's the 17th.
I don't have her calendar, but the third Wednesday would be the 17th.
That's what I'm guessing.
Yep.
17th.
So yeah, and I'm sure we'll have a topic to bring up, and I wasn't prepared to brainstorm for another topic for next month, but I know a couple of months ago we brainstormed about 3 or 4 good topics, and Sarah thought that 4-H was a good one tonight, and
maybe we can, if it's not already picked, maybe we can do like traveling with goats and setting up at the fair with goats, because I would love to hear people's insight on what to bring to the fair with your goats, or when you're traveling to show them off as like, I don't know, we don't do much for like petting zoos, but we could use that as an example too, as when you're taking your goat somewhere else, what to bring with you.
Had an idea, what if we invite non-SCI owners to our happy hour to share their stories about goats and fairs, and then maybe they'll get interested in SCIs.
Why not?
I mean, I don't know. We need more people to be raising these things.
Yeah. Well, we can open it up to that too. We can say, even if you're not an owner of goats before, we'd love to have you.
Yeah. I may be breaking rules here. I don't know. I do it all the time. So
we can ask Sarah when she shows up next week.
She's
gonna be at our place.
We don't break rules. We change rules.
Well, I do it, and then I say, oops, sorry.
That's what I said in the 4-H, when I was talking with the 4-H leader. I said, we're not trying to break rules. We're trying to change the rules.
Yeah.
That's forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if Sarah has a different idea for the calendar, I won't push. But if she doesn't have anything set up, then we can suggest that.
All right, you're going to be known as Jenny the Pusher.
At least I'm not Jenny the Nagger.
All right, and then I have to hop off.
Yep, have a good one.
For a good discussion.
Yeah, bye-bye. Great to see you all.
I want to head off as well.